without treat specific trauma. Panic attacks, they are treatable. Find a good therapist who know what to do with them specifically. Those two make trauma survivors like so difficult. Can't sleep, panic attack. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So from there, okay, I was doing well at the time. Leave a current abusive relationship. It's okay to say no. No is complete answer. My clients love that. You don't need to explain why. No, I don't want to go in. I'm not going to go with you. It's complete answer. No, it's complete answer. They need to hear that because they think they have to say yes. Yes, 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 yes. You give them permission to say no. So I teach yoga, and I always ask, if you don't want me to touch you with my hands, please raise your hand. Nobody usually raises hand, but I say, thank you so much for letting me know. Thank you so much for letting me know that you don't want me to touch. Make sense? Invitation is a great thing when we work with trauma survivors. Kids, adults, same thing. I think I'm covering pretty much today's. I'm pretty smooth. Oh, body-based thing. Trauma cannot be treated by just thoughts. Dr. Dana said, yeah, midbrain, right? Bear. That gotta be calmed down for that thinking, planning, following through, organization in our head to happen. That's why a lot of kids with a past, like a home trauma, they have learning difficulties. They think they are stupid. So we can say it makes sense that it's hard for you to remember these. Oh, makes me cry. It makes sense that it's hard to do homeworks. Let's come up with a way that you can actually keep track of them. Concrete help, concrete help, concrete help. That's same for adults. Does that make sense? Yoga is great, Tai Chi is great, anything to regulate brain. Meditation is great. Meditation can be prayers, music, walk, anything to engage body, to be able to relax body, maybe not relax, to calm down the nervous system. Then they can think they are smart. All right? So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And Ann Hurd.
Hi, my name is Ann Hurdy. I'm the Program Supervisor for Family Services at Community Mental Health here in Ottawa County. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I was asked to wrap up our panel discussion by talking a little bit about resilience. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I just like to go to the dictionary to start off with, what does that word mean? So here's a definition, Webster's Dictionary. Resilience is the ability of a strained body to recover its size and shape after being deformed, especially after intense stress. I'll read that one more time. Resilience is the ability of a strained body to recover its size and shape after being deformed by intense stress. So, I have a very simple plain piece of paper. Nothing very special about it. I did pink only so I wanted to make sure the people in the back of the room could see it. Right? It's your general standard piece of paper. And now I'm going to give it some significant stress. So if I were to crumble up this piece of paper, anybody think it has the ability to be resilient, to recover its size and shape after being deformed by that stress? Anybody think maybe it has? Maybe a little bit, right? I could unfold it. Uh-oh. It's ripped, isn't it? It's not quite the same shape, right? It's got some more wrinkles, some new crevices to it, right? But it's not too bad. But then I wonder, anybody ever heard the phrase, suck it up? Oh, yeah, a few people, okay. How about pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Yeah, okay, there's other phrases too, right? So let's do that. What if I said to this piece of paper, well, just suck it up. Wasn't that bad a stress? That seems kind of unfair, right? Or how about if I tell this piece of paper it needs to pull itself up by its bootstraps and recover all on its own? We all know, right? Paper can't recover on its own. This paper needs my help. It needs somebody in this room to pull it back apart. Maybe flatten it out, maybe put it between two heavy objects, right, to kind of help it a little bit, to support it. And when we think about resilience, we want to think about the same thing for resilience of us, right? Resilience of humans. What we're thinking about for our definition of resilience of the human person, right, is the ability to return to being healthy and hopeful. I love those two words. I say them all the time. Healthy and hopeful after bad things or trauma happens to us. After a trauma, significant stressor, really bad experiences happen, right? Nobody's expecting perfection. We shouldn't expect perfection. If we do, we're being too hard on ourselves. What we should strive for, right, is hope and healing that can come after being traumatized. Because the goal is, right, is not to say, well, this happened to my life, so I've got to be like this crumpled up piece of paper that's ripped, that doesn't hold its original shape. Instead, our focus on building resilience is to build hope and healing and to restore ourselves back. How do we do that? A couple of different ways, and some of the panelists have already talked a little bit about this, right? Safety and security. Now, we're also talking about emotional and physical, right? It's one thing to feel physically safe, but it's another thing to feel emotionally safe. And I know lots of us, myself included, right? We've had friendships or been in relationships, right, where I felt physically safe. Wasn't worried I was going to be hurt or abused physically, but emotionally wasn't the best relationship with me. Maybe that person called me a name. Maybe that person was really negative about something about myself. So again, recognizing, right, we want to build safety and security, emotionally and physically, and recognizing, right, it's going to look different for myself than it is for David, than it is for Krista, than it is for each and every one of us in the room. And the great thing is our goal is to define that for ourselves, right? We should define that for what we need. The other thing when we think about building resiliency is we want to think about nurturing relationships. Again, right? Who is nurturing? Where can I find that nurturing relationship? What does this look like? And again, when we think about nurturing relationships, we want to think about relationships that encourage us to have health and hope and healing, right? We want to think of solid relationships where somebody says to you, hey, when's the last time you took a day off from work, right? When's the last time you did something good for yourself? We want to find those relationships, right, that encourage us to be our best selves. We also want to experience social connectedness, right? That could be the faith community, that could be the YMCA, it could be a book club, a card club, whatever it is. How do you stay socially connected to other people, right? Because that's going to help build our resilience. Again, because our goal, right, is to think about being healthy and hopeful. The next one, basic needs being met, right? I don't know about you, but is there anybody in here who didn't eat dinner before you came in? I didn't, and I'm now paying for that significantly, right? I'm having a little more hard time focusing. My stomach's growling. I'm worried if my neighbors can hear it, right? And that was just one meal, right? No big deal. I'll be okay. But again, we want to recognize, right, that as we build resilience, we want to make sure that our basic needs are being met, right? Food, clothing, and shelter. Because again, the more physically and emotionally safe and stable we can be, the better our opportunities, right, to contribute or to truly create resilience. And then the other one we want to develop as well is skill development, and Rhea talked about that earlier, right, about thinking about developing emotional coping skills, about developing communication skills, right? How do I say what I need? How do I say what I want? How do I deal with all the emotions that come through life, right? Because resilience isn't about fixing everything and saying I'm never going to feel pissed off or happy or really angry or frustrated again, right? Because that's just life, right? So again, the goal is how do we deal with that in a healthy way? So one thing I want to encourage people to think about is the great news is we can all build resilience, and we should be, right? Because each of us changes over time, right? New things might happen for us. New things might create something different in us, right? A couple years ago, I was at fault in a car accident, right? That was quite traumatizing for me. Like the guilt and the shame and all that felt so horrible, right? And I'll be honest, right? I had to redo a little bit of resilience in myself, right? To recognize accidents happen. I didn't intend to run a red light. I didn't intend to do those sorts of things, right? So how do we give ourselves some grace, and how do we truly build up resilience? And it's not a one and done thing, right? It's not like this weekend I'm gonna be like, "Ah, you know what, this weekend's kind of free. I think I'm gonna spend all weekend building resilience. So if I start Friday at 5, I should be set by Monday at 8. Right? This isn't a one and done, right? This is a lifelong journey, which I think is great, right? Because I get to develop new skills, I get to develop new hobbies and new interests. So as I wrap up my time, because David does a great job holding us all accountable up here. So I have some handouts on the community mental health table that I just want to share with you when we think about developing resilience, because I think these tools are really helpful and they're public domain, so you could go on the internet, but you can also just take a copy and make copies. So the first one is called the Devereaux Adult Resilience Survey, and it's going to help you take a look at your relationships, your internal beliefs, your initiative, and some self-control. What are you doing great at? What are you doing sometimes at? And what's an area for growth? As you think about that, there's also called the Resilience Building Plan Worksheet. Again, it takes you through some different things because the goal is, right, I shouldn't try to say I'm going to be resilient in every area of my life by tomorrow. Again, this is a process. We want to give ourselves grace. We want to develop these strategies, right? So again, this is helping us understand signs of stress in our bodies, how to do some relaxation techniques. What am I good at, right? Because sometimes we all get down on ourselves, right? And we forget, you know what, I'm pretty darn good at some things and I need to celebrate that. How do we engage in meaningful activities, all that other sort of stuff. And then I also have a handout called 99 Coping Skills. I just think they're fun because you know what? Sometimes I get tired of doing the same coping skill, right? Anybody ever done that before, right? When I'm really upset in the car because somebody just cut me off and I have some choice words or body movements, right? I should find a coping skill, right? And sometimes when somebody says, oh, take a deep breath. I don't want to take a deep breath, right? I'm going to turn up the music as loud as my car, right? And I'm going to sing some ridiculous song, right? So this 99 coping skills is just a great way to think about, right? How do I cope, again, with the everyday stress in my life? How do I use those coping skills to build resilience? And then the last one is a self-care assessment worksheet. Again, right, sometimes people oversell the word self-care, right? I mean, you go to workshops and everybody's like, oh, just do self-care, right? Just do self-care. And sometimes I've heard enough people say, well, self-care is just a glass of wine and a bubble bath, right? Well, as much as I love my job, and my boss is sitting here tonight, I don't think she'd be okay if I had a glass of wine and a bubble bath in the middle of the workday, right? So I gotta find, right, some self-care techniques that I can do